Thank you, Mr. Chair. Oh, is this something on? I guess it's on enough. Thank you, Mr. O'Neill, for being here. Thank you for your willingness to go deeper into public service. You have experience with companies that are focused on age-related diseases and conditions, Alzheimer's being prominent. And certainly I share that interest and have been particularly interested in some of the research around sugar and ultra-processed foods that could be connected to dementia, different types of dementia in later life. As you may know, the Trump administration's NIH funding cuts and delays have led to a large amount of confusion. Some would call it chaos, particularly at the Alzheimer's disease research centers. And I mean, let's put it this way. Are you still interested in further research and understanding into the causes of and possible treatments of Alzheimer's? And if so, will you figure out some way to restore funding to the Alzheimer's disease research projects being done at NIH?
Senator, that does absolutely remain an interest. There are multiple causes of dementia. Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and Lewy bodies are perhaps the three most well-known. There could be others. There could be others that we don't know about. I think it's an open scientific question of how much we should focus research money more downstream, specifically Alzheimer's for these dollars, specifically Parkinson's for these dollars, specifically Lewy bodies for these dollars, and versus how much we should focus research dollars more upstream on what potential common factors and common causes all kinds of dementia and all kinds of aging damage has. I don't have a specific answer for that, but it is an area of like intellectual and operational interest for me, and I would love to engage in that.
Good, glad to hear that. In Colorado and in a lot of states, we worked hard to make access to green spaces and natural outdoor environments, recreational opportunities. It was both an economic priority for outdoor recreation, is a big part of most of the Western states. I'd say all the Western states, but also as a public health benefit, and making sure that those who work in outdoor spaces are safe, I think, is a responsibility for all of us and for the federal government. Nearly all the workers at the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health have been laid off, equally at that office, the same office in Denver. The office in Denver specifically focused on occupational health hazards experienced often uniquely in the West, such as wildfire. If you're fighting wildfires, what does that particulate and all those noxious smoke and fumes that you inhale, what are the consequences of that? If you're confirmed, Mr. O'Neill, how will you prioritize occupational safety and health, particularly in the West, with a severely feebled staff? In other words, the federal office has been not quite destroyed, but significantly reduced.
Thank you, Senator. That is a huge concern. As someone who's lived in Marin County, California for the last 14 years, I've had a lot of negative experience with smoke from wildfires. Stocked up on N95 masks before the COVID pandemic. Recall trying to understand the distinction between the N95 masks that were approved by FDA versus the ones that were approved by NIH. They seem very similar. I think they are pretty similar. Of course, it's important that all parts of government, including state governments, do their best to prevent wildfires and respond to them. And HHS, of course, has a role.
I'm fine with that. And I guess my question is really, are you going to fight like hell to make sure you get enough funding so you can do that some of that basic research? Because it is ongoing and critical. Last question, and then I'll let you go. As you know, the National Institutes of Health are the largest funders of biomedical research on Earth. Basic research often informs the next big discovery, often done in-house at NIH. Many biomedical companies are not incentivized to do this nuts and bolts research that translates into the big deal, and yet we all depend on that research. So if confirmed, as Deputy Secretary, how are you going to incentivize private companies and institutions to conduct research that historically they have depended on NIH for, but now are going to have to do on their own.
I think I agree with the whole premise of your question very strongly, Senator. Companies have a financial incentive to do late-stage translational research. They don't have an incentive to do basic research, which is also harder to patent. It's important that NIH do very extensive basic research because almost no one else will.
You're going to have a lot of work to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator.
I yield.
Mr. O'Neill, just a follow-up. In my questioning, I asked regarding there's a current effective mandate of CDC. If somebody wishes to become a permanent resident of the United States legally, it is effectively mandated that they receive vaccines. Would, knowing your opposition to mandates, would you attempt to rescind that?
Senator, I share a concern about either legal immigrants or illegal immigrants coming into the country with an infectious disease or without recommended vaccinations. I've not had a chance to discuss. I've been focused on most of the vaccine questions on rules for citizens and advice to citizens. I haven't had a chance to discuss rules for illegal immigrants with the Secretary, but I would happy, if confirmed, to dig in on that issue.
Well, I will have that as my a question for the record, if you could respond to that before next week. And for any other senator wishing to ask additional questions, questions for the record will be due at 5 p.m. tomorrow, May 9th. Thank you again to Mr. O'Neill for being here. The committee stands adjourned. Thank you.